Hey YouTube, what's going on? Snowflake here today with another deck profile. Today I am bringing my Manticore of Smashing Trap Stun deck. Manticore of Smashing is an interesting retrain of the Manticore cards from the early Duel Monsters era, and it's a new monster here that works with Smashing Ground and Fissure, two classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Classic normal removal spells that has just, in my opinion, been a really cool card, one of the best pack filler cards in a while, just because it's really interesting, and I was able to take it, look, and kind of build a deck around it, very similar to a lot of my Trap Stun decks, with a new cover on it, which of course is always nice and refreshing, especially because I always thought the old Manticore cards looked super cool, so I'm very glad to have this deck. With that said, let's get into the cards. Now, starting off with our monsters, I am playing two copies of the Manticore of Smashing. Manticore of Smashing is, of course, the card the deck is built around. 6 stars, 2300 attack. During your main phase, you can add a Fissure or a Smashing Ground from your deck to your hand. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish a Fissure or a Smashing Ground from your hand or graveyard to special summon this card. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. So that hard once per turn is definitely why I'm running only 2 copies of this, because once I can get it out of the deck and out in the field, I don't really want to see another one. But it's pretty cool once per turn. That adds, a Smashing Ground or a Fissure, which is a removal spell that helps thin our deck and gives us a spell to play to destroy a monster, which is pretty nice. And of course, this monster becomes recurring once I have a Fissure or a Smashing Ground, because if I've used a Fissure or a Smashing Ground, it's in my grave, I can just banish it and summon it back. So that means we can play a lot of cards that can destroy our own Manticore without worrying too much about it. Things like Torrential Tribute, stuff like that you're going to see, and that, being able to have those powerful board wipes in a trap deck is very nice. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Gold Gadget. Kind of a weird thing to pair with a Manticore, but Gold Gadget is of course a 1700 machine monster. What's important is as a machine monster and a beast warrior type monster, these monsters are 2 different types. Yes, we are going to be using There Can Be Only One as one of this deck's main win con. So these monsters can be on the field at the same time. When this card is normal or special summon, you can special summon a level 4 machine monster from your hand. And if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a level 4 gadget monster other than Gold Gadget from your deck. So it's pretty nice. If you have of course, another gadget in your hand, you can play Gold Gadget and summon it too. Sometimes you need to do that to make a turn 1 Baguska. But what's most important is if this card just is destroyed, you can float into another gadget, which is going to be our next card. 3 copies of Silver Gadget. Silver Gadget, of course, has 1500 attack, so less attack than Gold Gadget, but has a similar effect. When this card is normal special summon, you can special summon a level 4 machine monster from your hand. And of course, if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, we can special summon a level 4 gadget monster except Silver Gadget. So what's nice is we're playing board wipes and stuff like Torrential Tribute on the field. So if we have Gold Gadget and Gold Gadget gets destroyed by Torrential, we can just float into Silver Gadget. We get another card out of our deck, another monster on board, and it's just a pretty nice card to have. And that also makes it so that we can usually keep at least 1 monster on the field, which is nice because if we have a Manticore of Smashing in our hand, we can get it out of our hand by tribute summoning one of the leftover gadgets. Just makes a nice little additional floating body that can poke in and get a little extra damage, which we need to close out the game. Last for our monsters, I am playing 2 copies of Witch of the Black Forest. Witch of the Black Forest is just a monster that, when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, can search any monster with 1500 or less defense from the deck and put it in the hand, as long as we don't activate it the turn we use it. This can search any other card in our deck, or Gold Gadget or Silver Gadget, but namely our Manticore of Smashing. And that searching ability means that we don't have to play 3 of it, and which of course is an extra body, a spellcaster too, so it works with There Can Be Only One. And just another way to get Manticore of Smashing into our hand. And that is it for the monsters. Next, for the spells, I am playing 3 copies of Smashing Ground. Smashing Ground, a classic spell card that just says you can destroy the face-up monster your opponent controls with the highest defense they control. And of course, if it's tied, you get to choose. So that's pretty cool. This is the card that Manticore searches once per turn. You can even see in his artwork that his pose has him having doing the fist smashing the ground the same way, which is pretty cool. So searching this card allows us to pop a monster and then have it in the grave so that we can banish it and resummon Manticore of Smashing when it's removed from the field. So that definitely makes it a good card to run 3 of. Next, I am running 2 copies of Fissure. I think if you want a more optimal ratio, you want to bump this up to 3 and maybe cut Smashing Ground down to 2 because Smashing Ground doesn't work against Link monsters, so that just kind of makes Fissure better. But still, Fissure is a spell that just says destroy an opponent's face-up monster with the lowest attack on the field, and of course you choose if it's a tie. But yeah, so another pretty good card. We can destroy a monster and banish it to summon Manticore. You could bump these up to 3 of both, but I found that to be a little too much. I don't really want to see too many of these in my opening hand. I want to be pulling them out of the deck with Manticore of Smashing each turn. So 5 seemed enough that, you know, I didn't tend to need more than 5. Next up, I'm playing 3 Pot of Extravagance. You better believe we are using trap cards. We are not extra deck comboing in this build. And so Pot of Extravagance, we're just going to draw cards off of our extra deck. We're banishing 6 of those cards to draw 2. No big deal. We like doing that. Next up, I am playing 3 Pot of Duality. There's a lot of turns where we don't necessarily have to special summon, especially on our first turn, and Pot of Duality just does a lot to dig for the card we need. By not special summoning, we can look at the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 to our hand, and shuffle the rest back in. We can only use this card once per turn, and this is nice, namely to dig for our floodgate that we need to slow down the game so that this strategy takes hold, and Pot of Duality helps us get to that. Last for the spells, I am playing the 1 copy of Card of Demise. Card of Demise, incredibly good spell in a trap card based deck. We draw till we have 3 cards in our hand. We can't special summon. Our opponent takes no battle damage after this card resolves. And of course, at the end of the turn, we have to send our entire hand to the graveyard. But with so many spells and traps in the deck, that doesn't matter because we can usually just set them on the field. It's a good way to get a Manticore out of the hand into the graveyard to summon it on a future turn. You know, not a big deal for any cards that we lose, and just a great way to refuel after we've had a turn or 2. If we top deck a Card of Demise and get 3 trap cards, you know, 3 more cards, the game usually just kind of ends at that point. So, very good card to include in the deck. And that is it for the spells. Next up, going into our trap cards, I am playing 3 copies of Summon Limit. Summon Limit basically enables this strategy to work by slowing the game down to the point where this kind of strategy can take hold. Summon Limit is a continuous trap that says neither player can summon more than 2 times. You know, there's not too many times where we're going to be doing that. Maybe we float, gives us an extra 3rd summon, but you know, combo decks are not going to like having to only summon twice, because if we can flip Summon Limit after they've got 2 pieces out before they can go into their extra deck monsters, that will really hinder them, especially because thanks to Manticore searching removal spells and you know, 2300 attack usually can get rid of everything that has been summoned, and that makes it very nice. So 3 summon limit, great card. In addition, we are playing 3 copies of There Can Be Only One. This is our other win condition of the deck here, because There Can Be Only One says that each player can only control 1 monster of each type and must send all other types to the graveyard. We're usually only sitting on 1 Manticore Smashing, a Gadget to poke, maybe a Witch of the Black Forest to poke, and of course a lot of decks run monsters of the same type, and they need those types to be able to be on the field, and There Can Only Be One slows it down. And that's really the key here. We need to slow the game down so that Manticore can take hold and, you know, really start to settle in and basically handle everything our opponent can play. So There Can Be Only One definitely helps us in doing that. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Crackdown. Crackdown is just nice because we can target a face-up monster our opponent controls, take control of it. Now, while we control that monster, we cannot attack or activate its effects. But when that monster leaves the field, you can destroy this card. So it's pretty nice, of course. you know, sometimes if our opponent is summon limit or there can be only one and they have to pass on their monster, we can crack down, take it at the end phase, gives us a tribute to summon our Manticore from the hand with, or just removes it from the field so that we can attack directly. Manticore and Gold Gadget together are 4,000 attack, so 2 turns of being able to attack directly is all we need to close out a game, as long as our opponent hasn't gained life points. So things like that are important to note. Crackdown also works really well with summon limit because we can wait till our opponent has summoned twice and then take their monster. Sometimes it's even advantageous to let them go into their first extra deck monster, then summon limit, then crackdown it, instead of just flipping it as soon as they have 2 monsters on board. Anyway, next I'm playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. These are in here to protect our floodgates, summon limit, and there can be only one. Solemn Judgment just pays half our life points to negate a summon or a spell or trap activation. And of course, that's important. People are going to want to get rid of there can be only one. And summon limit, we don't want that to happen or we'll lose the game. So Solemn Judgment says no to that. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Solemn Warning. Kind of needed the last card to fill the deck spot here. And instead of Crackdown, I figured I kind of been liking Solemn Warning again lately. We pay 2,000 life points to negate a monster being summoned, or when a spell or trap card or effect monster's effect would summon a monster and negate it. I kind of like that because I like being able to negate normal summons a lot before they're summoned, which, you know, just a cool card. It works, you know, solid card. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute is incredibly powerful in this deck. It is a trap card that says when a monster is summoned, we can destroy all monsters on the field. Combos really well with summon limit. We can wait till our opponent summon 2 monsters, play Torrential, blow up their board. Then, of course, if we blew up our own Manticore, we can banish one of its cards to summon it back on our turn. And if we destroyed one of our gadgets, it'll float into another gadget. Witch of the Black Forest will also get us a search. So we get card advantage when we blow up our own board, and we can make our opponent pass on an empty board, which is pretty huge. Great card. And last, I am playing 3 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. This is mostly just a pick for dueling in my duel group. This deck doesn't have a lot it can do against other back row decks, and I don't want to lose to other back row. So 3 of Heavy Storm Duster deals with spell and trap cards my opponent would play. I can target up to 2 spells and traps and destroy them in exchange for my battle phase. Doesn't usually matter that effect because I'm playing it during my opponent's turn, and there's no battle phase on that turn. Yeah, it just makes it a good card. If you're not as worried about seeing other back row decks, you don't have anybody playing Labyrinth or Trap Tricks or anything like that, you can side this out for other traps, you know, copies of Solemn Strike, maybe more Floodgates or protection for them, things like that. And that is it for the main deck. Talking about the extra deck here, I will say that you don't go into your extra deck too often since we're playing a Floodgate-based deck. But I would definitely recommend running at least, well, you need to run 15 cards for the extravagance, of course, but I would definitely recommend running these 2 cards out of 3 of. The first is Baguska. This is something that can be handy because if you have a gadget and another gadget in your hand, you can summon both of them from the gadget effect and go into Baguska. This is helpful if you don't have a lot of your floodgates already because you can summon Baguska in defense, and it's like a 2-turn skill drain. It puts all monsters in defense and negates their effects. So to buy you some time to look for those floodgates, of course. And then, of course, I would run Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, just because after you've stalled for maybe a turn on Baguska, you can attack with Baguska. It's got 2 materials. You can make Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, which can detach both materials to destroy all cards on the field. You know, to wipe out the field, which is pretty cool. As for the rest of the extra deck, I would run whatever level 4, rank 4 XZs kind of help you out best. Not really a lot of link climbing we can do in this deck, no synchro potential, so just good rank 4 XZs should do you enough solid. But these are 2 I particularly wanted to talk about because of my history playing this deck. These are the only 2 I've ever made, so max out on those, fill the rest as you need. So that is it for my Manticore of Smashing deck. Overall, definitely a fun deck for me to play. I really like these trap stun decks, and Manticore of Smashing is just a cool looking card that I love that they gave it such a cool effect that allows me to do this build around with it. Definitely a lot of cool things you could do with this. I've seen someone play this with a Quaki Miru Beast Warrior deck that if I had, I would definitely be trying it out. But you know, this is just an easy way that works with what I got, and it's pretty solid. You know, it definitely does what it needs to do to win some games. But I appreciate it. Would love to know what your favorite kind of random pack filler card like this is that you maybe have built a deck around, and love to know maybe you've played Manticore of Smashing against something. Love to talk about it in the comments below. I'll catch you all in the next one.